The Grizzco Stringer was introduced in Splatoon in October 2022, making it the first new Grizzco weapon for Splatoon 3. It's a middleweight rare weapon that only appears during some random weapon rotations. It has the appearance of an illegitimately modified tri-stringer and has 9 arrows that, when fully charged, make it the most powerful single-shot weapon in the game currently. Whilst it packs an absolutely insane damage potential, it is limited by an unforgiving ink tank and 9 different arrows which can make aiming quite tricky. The Grizzco Stringer is a high-risk, high-reward weapon that encourages efficient ink management, smart charging of the weapon, and an eye for aiming at targets in unique ways. Stats. Just before we start, I may end up calling this weapon the bow at some points for ease. As mentioned, the bow has the highest single shot damage of any weapon in the game. When fully charged, each projectile deals 150 damage, which totals 1,350 if all 9 hit the same target. The downside of this is that it takes just over a second to fully charge it, and the ink consumption is high, usually around a quarter of your ink tank. It should be immediately clear then that you're punished for always using fully charged shots with this weapon. Charges to the first circle, which I'll label as partial charges, deal approximately 72 damage per projectile, totaling approximately 648 damage if all 9 hit the same target. But these shots only take approximately half a second to charge, so your lower total damage is traded with faster charging time. Just for perspective, 648 damage is still practically higher than any other single shot weapon in the game, with only a handful of other weapons being able to match those numbers. The ink consumption for partial charges is also about half of what a full charge is, meaning you get double the amount per full ink tank. When charged to the first circle or more, projectiles become explosive. You see these stick in the ground if they don't hit a target. They explode after 0.5 seconds and cause 40 damage to anything in a small radius around it. These projectiles are useful for causing chip damage and assisting with damaging multiple enemies at once. They also work really well with stunning enemies, such as scrappers. In addition, they are quite useful for reviving teammates who are far away or you have difficulty reaching. The bow's ability to arc its shots allows you to hit targets from angles otherwise unreachable. Tap shots, which are literally just tapping the ZR button without any charge, do approximately 35 damage per projectile, totaling around 315 if all 9 hit one target. Even though they're tap shots, they're still quite ink hungry, just like the other ways you shoot this weapon. Tap shots are the best way to paint using this weapon, and I prefer it to using partials to activate the explosive projectiles. You can use it either way, I just find tap shotting more ink efficient for painting. Jumping with the Grizzco Stringer causes the weapon to shoot vertically instead of horizontally. There are a few reasons you do this, and we'll discuss this later on. Your crosshair changes shape when it is within range of a target. The bow has quite long range, however the 9 different arrows can make it tricky to aim. Again, something we'll discuss later on, but it's worth just mentioning that this is something you'll get used to the more you play the weapon. So as a last point, if you've watched the triumvirate guide, you would have seen the part where I spoke about the bow's ink usage. I made that video in 16 hours, and when I went to test the numbers I found, I just went tap tap tap. Yeah, great. I'm on sedatives following a flight home. This will do. So the info in that video is slightly wrong, and that's what I get for rushing a video without due diligence. The reason I want to correct this is because the bow has quite a harsh ink tank, and to the uninitiated, it feels immediately difficult and hard to manage. Harsh ink tanks are generally one of the biggest drawbacks of powerful weapons and one of the biggest hills to overcome. It takes some practice and is something that you'll get a feel for the more you play. You get about 10 tap shots, 8 to 9 partial charges, and 4 full charges per full ink tank. Throwing a bomb heavily impacts this, and ink recovery is on the slower side, meaning you can find yourself without ink quickly if you mindlessly tap away without thinking about ink consumption. So whilst the information in the triumvirate video is wrong regarding strict numbers, the overall message is still something I recommend to take on board with a Grizzco Stringer. Your tap shots and partial charges are more ink efficient and end up having a higher damage output compared to fully charged shots. To fully love this weapon is to recognize that fully charging this thing isn't the best way to always use it. This is just a feature that all stringers have. boss slaying. For its fully charged shot, the bow can one-shot every single boss salmonid in the game. The highest HP bosses, Moors, Big Shots and Flipper Floppers, all have 1200 HP, making it feasible to ignore your sub-weapon, ignore your specials, and focus on firing fully charged shots into those particular bosses. This is ink tank dependent, however, and is something that comes with the territory of learning this weapon. Can you find the time and ink to fully charge a shot, or is it more efficient to use partials? Your 1200 HP bosses can all be killed in one shot with a bow, but sometimes you'll need to partially charge, either for a quicker kill or for safety. For the rest of the enemies in regular waves, partials and tap shots are generally the best way to manage them. I'll circle back to steelheads in a moment, but as mentioned before, you can deal more damage more quickly by utilising charges to the first circle or by using tap shots. This is how you should focus the majority of bosses such as steel eels, scrappers, lids and drizzlers. For stingers, you can charge to the first circle and vertically aim your shots, allowing you to one-shot all of the pots if aimed correctly. For fish sticks, you can climb them and tap shot them if you need safety, but you can reach them from the ground either charging or tap shotting and jumping. Steelheads are quite tricky to the uninitiated. You'll naturally want to aim with the centre of your weapon, but for steelheads you should aim off-centre, slightly to the right. You can line up two crosshairs that are close enough together that both fully charged do 300 damage, the health of the steelhead bomb. It takes some practice and getting used to. As long as you're able to aim two crosshairs at the bomb, you can aim however you like. I just find aiming slightly to the right the easiest. Flyfish pose an issue for the bow, as throwing bombs can be quite tough on its ink tank. It may not be your main focus, but in free lunch you might have no choice. Consider special use where possible from multiple flyfish, as this will be quicker and safer than attempting to use bombs. For Moors, I often opt to shoot them instead of recharging my ink tank. It's quicker most of the time. Night waves can be tricky. High ink consumption weapons struggle on waves like Rush, Mothership, Cannons, Mudmouths and Tornado, as you'll want quicker movement, quicker ink refill and quicker firing than slower, powerful shots. Again, you should focus on taps and partials rather than fully charging. For grillers, you can stun and kill them entirely independent and should focus on doing this. Fully charge your shots where possible, as you'll only need 2 of them to fully kill a griller. For the king waves, the bow is probably the only weapon that can do more damage than golden eggs in a similar time frame. If you are given this weapon, your focus should be damaging the kings and only damaging the kings. Deciding whether to use partials or fully charged shots depend on how safe you are and how much ink you have. You can switch between both depending on the situation. Remember, a partial does at least 600 damage when charged to the first circle. Sometimes you'll only need these and not fully charged shots. Weapon roll. Given its penchant for slaying, you'll be right in assuming the best use for the bow is being the slayer. Whilst it doesn't have the ability to pierce, it does have shot spreads, giving you ways to damage multiple things at once. This also allows you to focus on different enemies simultaneously, but this is a skill that will come with practice, and given the way the 9 arrows line up, it won't be something easy to pull off immediately. Still, you're able to damage lots of things at once and leave projectiles in the ground to explode if you want to delay your attacks for any reason, such as stunning enemies or reviving teammates. Deciding whether to tap, partially charge or fully charge takes some practice and is something that requires situational awareness and understanding of ink resourcefulness and weapon rolls within your team. As the Grizzco Stringer, you may be the best suited to killing, but your team might not be able to support you, so you'll need to play smart and without recklessness to ensure you don't die. You may also struggle if the only bosses that spawn are flyfish, as these will force you out of your natural role. There's no harm in playing safer if you struggle with this weapon, but if not utilising a slayer role, you'll waste the potential of it. It's therefore important to learn when you want to tap shot to help with lessers, or fully charge the weapon, sacrifice the time that takes, and one-shot a boss. In addition, if your teammate has this weapon and you're trying to contest boss kills with them, you're simply wasting your time and contributing to a lack of efficiency within the squad. Support them, but don't double up on tasks or waste waste your time when the bow can do this job just fine. Given the high ink consumption, you might want to play almost cautiously if you're not well practiced. It's very easy to run out of ink quickly with the bow, and you'll be punished when you do. Whilst not as punishing as other Grizzco weapons such as the Slusher, you'll still be forced to be mindful of how much ink you have in your tank and what choices you have. You'll be punished if you spend the entire wave only fully charging your shots, and truth be told, unless your target is up close or is extremely big, you'll miss some of the arrows and not use the maximum you can with this weapon, so only fully charging your shots is wasteful. You may not need to concentrate all 9 arrows into one enemy, and sometimes doing this is simply overkill. Unloading 1350 damage into a Cohawk is simply wasting that damage. Here you'll want to use taps or partials, so as to not waste ink, but also to not waste the damage you can inflict. Yes, you're a killer, but you shouldn't be wasteful. Resourcefulness is a learned skill for SalmonRun, and the bow is a weapon that exercises that skill. Aiming. As mentioned before, aiming with this weapon is probably the thing you'll struggle with the most behind ink management. My best piece of advice for this is understanding that you'll waste some of your aim and to prioritise what you want to aim at. If you only need to tap shot to escape lessers, then you can do this and also paint for yourself. If you want to do the same but with partial charges to the first circle, then you can always leave projectiles behind you or in front to help with turf or to assist with overall damage. Jumping while shooting also allows you to arc your shots over enemies. This is especially useful for hitting things further away or higher up. This is very much the same for all the regular stringers. You should utilise arcing your shots whenever you need to aim over something or you want to get something painted ahead of you. You can't pierce, but you can shoot in a different way to all other weapon classes. When you jump, your weapon will shoot vertically instead of horizontally. There are 2 main reasons you'd want to do this. The first is, as mentioned, to create a shot spread to arc your shots over and above enemies. The second is to aim at stingers, which have 7 pots at 60 HP each. It's possible to one-shot a stinger with a partially charged vertical shot. You can do this from some distance too, making you a great candidate for dealing with them. The same can be said for steelheads too, as the range at which you can kill them makes you more often than not the best player to target them. Just make sure for steelheads you fully charge if you're far away, as you'll need 2 150 shots to get it. Concentrating your aim into one enemy is only really needed when you need to fully maximise the damage, and this is for any boss that has 1200 HP or for the king salmonids. You want all 9 arrows to hit, so you'll need to move closer to the enemy than you otherwise normally would. This obviously carries risks with it, but again, this is the job of the Grizzco Stringer. Aiming is easier the closer you are to an enemy, and this may be what you need to do whilst you're still trying to figure out how to aim from further away. Again, with steelheads, if you're able to get above them, you can kill them more comfortably, either with horizontal or vertical. Don't overthink this weapon. It can kill enemies in a variety of different ways, and you'll find a way that works best for you the more you play it. The Grizzco Stringer is a very unique weapon, and the ways it can be used are almost completely unlike any other weapon in the game, so treating it like other weapons won't yield good results. A lot of it comes down to practice, and you will feel more comfortable with this weapon the more you use it. It's one of the rare weapons that have more of a feel to using it rather than specific strats. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I've found with the bow that it just feels strong, and when used well, it's an absolute killing machine. I won't have mentioned everything here due to time, so it's likely I've missed some stuff. Still, I hope what I have mentioned helps you appreciate and love this weapon as much as I do. Let me know what you think. I'll see you guys soon.